Good morning again. So actually it's 11:30. It's time officially to begin, unless we are waiting for someone else. Sebastian, can you maybe write some music? Or is it okay to start? Yes, it's time, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Dear members, welcome to our special webinar, HSE webinar, where our partners, Solution Style Limited, is preparing for us. So without taking much time, allow me to welcome Mr. Wilson, the Public Relation and Communication Officer from Solution Style, to introduce your team. Before further ado, you're welcome. Thank you, Sebastian, and good morning, everyone, again. So, welcome to this webinar, as introduced by Sebastian here. My name is Wilson. I'm serving as the Communication and Public Relation Officer here at Solution Step. With me, it's Mr. Peter Kichogo and Judith Macho. Mr. Peter Kichogo is the Managing Director for Solution Step Company. And also with us is our main presenter, our HSE Solution Coordinator, Madam Judith Macho. So with that, it's kind of kick off with a bit of introduction, because it's a roll call.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wilson, for that wonderful introduction. And it's a pleasure being part of this amazing webinar series from Solutions Tag. And much thanks to ATOGS for making this happen. We understand it's never easy pulling all of the members together, especially in a busy day like today, Wednesday. So much thanks to ATOGS and specifically to Sebastian. I believe you are still serving as a Secretary of ATOGS, correct? Okay, thank you so much for the effort. I really commend whatever ATOGS is doing. So my name is Peter Kichogo, as mentioned by Wilson. I'm the Managing Director for Solutions Tech Consulting Limited. Yes, so I understand that you're all familiar with ATOGS because, I assume you are the members of ATOGS. And I think it will make a lot of sense. We spend some few minutes to let you know who is Solutions Tag in a nutshell and what actually we do. So Wilson, next slide, please. Yeah, so we have I think it's 1 to 2 minutes video, just highlighting what drives Solutions Tag existence, which I believe will give you the high level picture of Solutions Tag vision.
This is the story about tomorrow. Tomorrow belongs to who prepares it. It was once said, tomorrow means the future. It's never the same as today, because today is to pass, and tomorrow is to come. No matter how today is, everyone thinks in the tomorrow. It's a tomorrow that promises for better future. A tomorrow that forgets the bruises of today. At Solutions Tag, we believe in a better tomorrow. A better tomorrows are not only yes. A tomorrow that companies and investors will enjoy optimal operating costs and small budget. A tomorrow that local experts have a wide look to contribute to the betterment of the industry. A tomorrow that believes in the most of the time very local city. The question is, who is responsible in creating a better tomorrow wants to see? At Solutions Tag, our motivator the better tomorrow wants to see. Working collaboratively with more than solutions, all this, we are focused to like local expertise and understand of local dealing in its physical participation in the border is its association. At the time, in order to solution, industry is every way possible optimize costs by improving performance and compliance to the regulatory required. Innovative solutions come from creative mind of young professionals, helping the team of young, energetic, creative and to young professionals working collaboratively with our experts gives the obvious to our client at the betterment of Tanzania oil and gas sector on our hand. Let's partner collaborative create it. Solutions that believe in the better tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wilson, for the wonderful presentation. So just to highlight, Solution Tech is we ideally started as oil and gas major company, focusing to create what we so call a better tomorrow. And when we speak of better tomorrow in our context, we translate it in terms of bringing solutions to our clients and making sure that their business environment and every aspect of their business gets improved from day to day. So we are striving to bring innovative solutions to oil and gas industry, and that was our starting act. At the moment, we have just realized the growth of our clients' need for the interest from other industries as well. So we have a number of other clients from different industries apart from oil and gas. Yeah. So as far as Solutions Tag is concerned, we have a number of services that we offer. Of course, HSE consultancy, it's one of the services, and we believe we have a responsibility to share the knowledge, to share the expertise with our partners, with our clients, and therefore we are having what we so call HSE webinar series. And this is a very specific webinar to ATOGS member, but we normally have other webinar series available, which is very free for anyone to attend, but at least for this one, I was tailor-made to ATOGS members. So welcome to Solutions Tech. We'll be honored to keep in touch with you, and wish you all the best as we are going to on today's webinar on environmental auditing, trying to see two dimensions: the compliance vis-a-vis risk mitigation. So I think our expert Judith will take us through, and I believe this will be a very insightful session. And we believe from this session we will give a lot of knowledge as far as environmental auditing is concerned as a way to compliance as well as risk mitigation. So thank you so much and have a lovely session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peter. Sebastian, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Managing Director, Mr. Peter Choco, for a very comprehensive presentation about Solution Tag and what you're doing. We are very happy that we have learned about your initiatives. According to your program, I know all of you ATOGS. It's a membership organization that seeks to represent the interests of local service providers who are positioning themselves to participate in the full value chain into the oil and gas sector and other sectors, including energy related, to mention a few. We have members that have joined this webinar, and they will be looking forward to have those fruits from the juries so that we can get a clear understanding of HSE and how we can mitigate risky global compliances as well. So before I welcome Ms. Julius to take us through, I have your bio, so I would love also to introduce you to members so that they know you, who are you, and what you're doing. So Julius, much how the degree petroleum engineering from the University of Leicester. The sales at the HSE solution, HSE solutions coordinator at Solutions Consulting Company. where she was working in the HSE product development, business development, HSE project assignment. She's also a pioneer for the HSE for Better Tomorrow program, a program meant to ignite next spark the sense why in how HSE or the future employees before making entry into the industry. Joining the company as an intern, this is really promising. Working hard in hand with the team to develop the structure of the HSE department, which was new to the company. With a proven creative ability to develop the 5 HSE products, namely HSE compliance, fire safety, HSE management system, product HSE management, and wastewater. Despite being the only leader of the company, she has proven her ability to lead fast, manage different projects, and good decision-making for the company's goals. After 5 months, her position was upgraded to HSE Solutions Coordinator due to the scope of her work and the proven deliverance and a big milestone for a young lady like her. Julius believes that the challenges are the simplest way to grow in her career. She appreciates the lot of teamwork and the daily challenges she meets at work. Despite being an engineer, she constantly practices safety because she believes that if an engineer messes with the past, it leads to a high chance of incidents and casualties occurring. With this belief, she found her way to work as health, safety, and environment expert with a vision to create a safe working environment, processes, and operations. A safe business, which in turn a better tomorrow. Dear members, so that was Julie's matcha bio in brief. Now allow me to welcome to this matcha our HSE expert to present to us. Madam Judith, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sebastian. I hope you can all hear me. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. Welcome to our session. We are going to discuss about environmental auditing, speaking of the compliance and risk mitigation in environmental auditing. I hope you know me already. I'm Judith Macha, HSE Solution Coordinator from Solutions Tab, as Sebastian introduced me to you. So let's dive into our topic today. Let's just understand what is environmental audit. We have the Environmental Management Act of 2004, which says environmental audit is a systematic. Of course, it has to be systematic, documented, periodic, and objective evaluation of how well the environmental organization management and equipment are performing in conserving and preserving the environment. So as we all know, or we are supposed to know, before we start any projects or before we start any work that involves the environment, we are supposed to carry out an environmental impact assessment to see what the environmental impact or social impact can that project be done to the environment. So once we done that, we usually develop what we so-called environmental and social management plan. So with the environmental auditing, we are trying to document and to see if that environmental and social management plan that was prepared, which shows the standard operating procedures, how our equipment will be doing, how we will be operating, how our process will be operating in protecting an environment. Then we'll be seeing how do they conserve and how do they preserve the environment. So how do they protect the environment from any kind of disruption? And how do they maintain the environment in its original form or in good practice for the environment? That was the definition given by the Act. And then regulations even go far better, explaining deep what is environmental auditing. And this is evaluation, the systematic evaluation of the activities. So going down to the activity one after another, the processes of that operation of that project to determine how far that those projects and that's activities, that those programs conform to those management plan that was produced early during the environmental impact assessment. And with that, when we are doing environmental impact assessment for each project has its specific management plan and it has its specific issues to consider in that project. So we are trying to say how does that management plan conform to the ongoing activities depending on that specific project or that specific activity that you are doing, and how does that conform to the sound environmental management practice that's there to make sure that our environment is okay for sustainability, and how does they conform to the applicable environmental standards. In Tanzania, we speak about the Act, we speak about the numbers of regulation from air quality regulation, wastewater, noise, vibrations, all of them, to whatever regulations that is putting forward. So I've given an example in Tanzania, because I'm in Tanzania. I hope we are all aware of Tanzania's laws and regulations. So we see how do they conform to those environmental standards that have been kept in place to conserve our environment. So environmental audit, if you perform it intentionally, so when intentionally undertaken, it has been proved to be an effective management tool that can benefit the operations, can benefit the activity, and of course can manage the environmental impact of that specific projects, of that specific activity, or of that specific organization. And when you do environmental auditing, because during auditing you try to see the plans that you have, how you operate your activities, how you operate your operations, and see how do they affect the environment. So during this, once you find there's some negative impact to the environment, or the environment has some negative impact to the operations, then you are coming up with the effective solutions. So we usually come up with the effective solution to the environment problems that is being faced to that organization or to that project or to that activity. And with this one, we facilitate the management control of the environmental practice of that specific project or that specific organization, of which in turns can be the good tools to upgrade the management or the risk management or the environmental management practice of that organization at large. So there are some objectives of why we perform environmental auditing. As I said earlier, first is we are trying to see the conformity to environmental and social management plan that was being prepared during the environmental impact assessment. Then we see, do we really adhere to that plan that was produced? And our plan is really sufficient to the project. As we see the when project, how do they conserve the environment? Is there anything we can add to that? So that is the first one. And the second thing, as I say, during the auditing process, you try to see how does your equipment operation affect the environment, and how does your environment affect your operation. So if you find there's some negative, sometimes they can be positive, but they are not bringing out the good fruit. So you learn from the experience. If you find this design of my equipment affect my environment, so I cannot help sustainability to these operations, then you go down to refine the design, you go down to refine the standard operating procedures to see how we can mitigate the impact that we have been learning from that experience of that operation that you have been doing. So this is one among the tools, or this is one among the objectives to help you learn from experience. They say those who don't want to learn from the experience or to learn from their mistakes, they eventually do not grow. So if you need to grow on your business during the environmental auditing, you learn from the experience that gives you a way to grow into a business, to make sure that you have the environmental friendly operations and equipment, and of course you provide the sustainability for your daily operations. But it's also a framework for checking compliance. We'll see as we go that environmental auditing is one among it presents a unique legal issues. So if it has the legal issues, that means it's also a framework to see how you comply with those regulations or those standards that have been put in place. But with this one, as I said, during the auditing, you find you have found some impacts into the environment. Then you come up with a solution on how to mitigate those impact that you found. So during auditing, one among the objectives is to make sure that the mitigation measures have been identified, and not only being identified, then have been implemented in due time to make sure that we minimize those impacts to our environment and we ensure for sustainability. So why audit? Someone might be asking themselves, why should we be going for audit? I'd say some objective, but you need to ensure a regulatory compliance in your area as a business leader or as a business owner or as a somebody in the management administration. You need to ensure that your business or whatever your operation, the activity has the regulatory compliance status, that you are okay and you don't have anything to mingle with the regulators that's neutral and compliance. But why audit? You also need to assess the existing and of course the potential, what can be the potential liability to your operations. So we have these things that can be leading to harm. It is sometimes or the reason for harm to our existing operation. So we do audit to know what is it exactly that is causing harm to my business and what can be the potential liability to my operation today so that I can mitigate it to make sure that tomorrow I have more of the profit rather than the liability to my projects or to my operations. But we also need to protect the company officials as mentioned in the Environmental Management Act of Tanzania 2004. We need also to track the compliance cost to our business or to our operations. But it's also present, of course, it's one among the tools which present the accountability of the management or of the administration of that specific organization. If you need to know if that management or that administration is really accountable for the environment, they are really environmental, that they present environmental stewardship, then you will see how the numbers of auditing they've been doing and if they have been implementing those recommendations, those mitigation measures that have been put in place during environmental auditing. But as we all know, we usually have insurance for our operations or for our companies, for our organization. So environmental auditing also presents very important information to insurance companies to make sure that we pay our insurance premium that are optimal. We don't pay that much of the premium because we are sure of our operations and we do auditing each now and then that is required. But it's also protect the environment. And during the auditing, we find some people need to be trained. So people can be trained to adapt to environmental friendly practice, to adapt to the base operations that, of course, at the end, provide them profit for our operations and for our business. So there are some issues to understand when someone is dealing with the environmental auditing. As I said from the definitions provided by the Act, this is a periodic process that has been done. So that means if it's a periodic, of course, it's present the legal issues, it requires commitment of resource. If you need to invest in the environmental auditing, then you have to commit your resources, including the manpower and the funds that can be needed during the environmental auditing. And since it's periodic, that means it requires repeated use of resources. So when this year you need the same resource, the next year, the next year, and the next year, because it's a periodic activity that has been done. And at some time during some operations or some procedures during the auditing, it might disrupt the operations depending on the industry you're working in or the area you're working in. Though it might not be that much, but it can present some disruption to the operation for a short time. But it also presents a unique legal issues. As you can see, it is guided by the Act and the regulations in place. So it has the unique legal issues that you need to follow during the environmental auditing. And for the environmental auditing to be effective, that means all the agreed recommendations that have been put in place have to be implemented. They must be implemented for us to see the impact they have to the environment. So in the management or the administration of the organization, they have to understand that if you do not implement the recommendation, then they can be having some implication to it. There can be some cost implication. There can be some reputational implication of it, and many more of them as you can see in the coming slides. So you need to make sure all the recommendations that have been put forward during the environmental auditing are being implemented for the result to be seen into the environment. So, as I said, it presents the unique legal issues. Let's see the legal framework on environmental auditing. We'll dive in much in Tanzania's, of which we have the Environmental Management Act of 2004. And if you refer to class 101, you can see we have like 4 issues here. The first issue is the council shall be responsible for carrying out an environmental audit in respect to any project or undertaking that is likely to have significant impact on the environment. And speaking on the council to be responsible, we are speaking on the control audit. We'll see in the coming slides, but this is the type of auditing that is being done after 5 years, where the council in Tanzania, the National Environmental Council, need to come at the project area to do the auditing to see how far that those operation principles conform to the plans, and if there are some other issues that we need to put forward in that, if there are some other issues that we need to put in that area to ensure that we maintain the environment or we preserve and conserve the environment. But there is anything also the environmental inspector or any forestry officer, upon giving journals, may enter the land or the premises for the purpose of determining how far the activity will be out on that land or that premises conform with the environmental impact statement. The environmental impact statement is the report or the statement provided after environmental impact assessment, of which inside here you find there is environmental management plan. So the act of coming to see how far those activities conform to that plan or conform to that environmental impact statement, that is environmental auditing. So inspector may be coming into your area to see how far they are coming. But notwithstanding the subsection 1 and 2, the proponent or the operator here, we're speaking of the administrator or the developer of the projects, are supposed to keep the accurate record and make it the annual report to the council. So speaking of the annual report to the council, we are speaking of the annual environmental auditing that the developer is supposed to present to the council annually to ensure that, to show how far that the project conform in operation to those plans that were made earlier. And with that means not only to present the annual report to show how far they conform to those plans, but we are also supposed to take all reasonable measures to mitigate any undesirable effects. Sometimes in the plan there are those undesirable effects that we did not foresee them. So you are also supposed to present this with all reasonable measures to mitigate any undesirable effect that was not previously anticipated in the environmental impact assessment. And with that, we shall prepare for submission to the council a comprehensive report on annual basis. So speaking of the annual basis of this report, is the annual environmental audit that the developer is supposed to do in their projects or in the organization or in their area of work and submit it to the council on annual basis. And speaking of these ones now, as we dive in, we will see or we will appreciate that doing the environmental audit, of course, it's the legal requirement and regulatory requirement, is supposed to be done by the person or a firm certified and registered by the Environmental Council. So this is we're speaking about the registered environmental expert or the registered environmental firm that is supposed to do. So the developer will contact the third party who is registered, of course, and certified expert or certified firm to perform this and produce this annual report for submission to the council. After that, now let's see the compliance need for the environmental audit. As we saw, and of course, one among the principal function, the principal objective of the environmental audit is to improve the organization or the activities compliance with the environmental legislation and regulations. Speaking of the air emission standard, speaking of the effluent standard, speaking of wastewater standard and the like, and whatever standard operation procedures. So it's basically safe to improve the organization or the activity or the operations or the project compliance with the environmental legislation in those areas. And speaking of compliance, of course, the environmental compliance, we are speaking of adhering to whatever environmental laws. In Tanzania, we have the Environmental Management Act of 2004. Speaking of the regulations, we have a number of regulations. Speaking of the guidelines and standards that have been kept for sustainable practice or for sustainable environmental practice in this area. So with this, let's see the types of the environmental audit that we have and that we are supposed to do, that we are supposed to comply with in our projects. We have the initial audit. This initial audit is performed from after 12 months and not more than 24 months of the project life. So once we have our project working, once we can start the project implementations, then after 12 months and not more than 24 months, a developer, by using the expert or the firm of registered free of environmental experts, supposed to have this initial audit to see whatever we say in the plan, if they conform the real work for that specific project. And we have the control audit, I say area, which is performed after 5 years, and this is performed by the council itself. Then we come into the area to audit and see whatever you have been reporting and on an annual basis, whatever you said on the initial audit, and whatever you said in your environmental management plan, if they conform, if your project, if your operations, if your activities conform to what you've been said all these years. And we have the self-auditing. This self-audit is on annual basis. That is being done is supposed to be done by a registered environmental expert or the firm of environmental expert that is registered, of course. And this is the annual report that you are supposed to be submitting to them on annual basis. So means it's a periodic annual issue that you are supposed to do each now and then. And among the importance of compliance in the environmental auditing, we have the legal compliance, of which, as I said, it represents the unique legal issues. So adhering or complying environmental auditing, it helps in legal compliance. That means you adhere to whatever environmental laws and regulations that have been put for that. And for that, that means you avoid any form of legal penalties and legal fines, whatever kind of damage to the reputation that can be happening due to the legal non-compliance. So with the compliance ensures that the business operates responsibly, and it's of course within the framework of the prescribed regulations in that area. But it's also provided for the environmental protection, of which means with complying to environmental auditing, because the aim of environmental auditing regulations and laws is to protect, to preserve and conserve the environment. That means you'll be preserving and conserving the environment, the natural resource, the ecosystem, which in turn help prevent the pollutions, reduce the waste generation, and of course, foster the sustainable practices for your business or for your operations. But it also helps to provide the stakeholders trust, while complying or demonstrating compliance is here to build trust among the stakeholders, this including the customers that you are working with, the investors in the business, the community, the government itself at large. So it presents or it showcase the organization commitment to the environmental stewardship and of course the responsible business practice. But it's also among the marketing tools, as I said, it's build a competitive advantage to whoever that is compliant environmental auditing, since the compliant organization bring a competitive edge by meeting, of course, the marketing expectation and, of course, the consumer's demand for whatever environmental responsible product and services. So the person or the business or the organization who complies to environmental auditing who ensure compliance, they can differentiate themselves from the organization who are non-compliant, because people will be going for those who comply because they produce the environmental friendly products and the services. So speaking of compliance, let's see a bit of the compliance cost, because people have been seeing like complying, of course, it's a lot of it's cost funding for our business. But let's have a bit of compliance cost versus the non-compliance cost of any organization or any business. So the research done by the Investopedia and the Global Scope on the total cost of the compliance, they say, of course, they found that organizations spend an average, this is an average, so it's depending on whatever industry we're working with, but organizations spend an average of $5.5 million in compliance compared to $15 million for non-compliance cases. So you can see from $5.5 million for compliance to $15 million for non-compliance. It's like 3 times of it, of course. So you find the cost of non-compliance is even much higher for the cost of the compliance. But you can see they even went far to saying a single non-compliance event can cause an organization to lose an average of $4 million. That is for a single non-compliance case. So if you find yourself having a number of non-compliance cases, you can see how much you'll be losing. If you have 10 non-compliance cases, then you'll be losing almost $40 million. This is a which sum of money. Of course, it's a drop in revenue. It's a lot of money to be losing. So it's better for someone to be spending $12 million for compliance than being losing this amount of money for a single non-compliance, and of course, $15 billion for non-compliance cases. This includes the fines, the penalties by the regulators. This is a much more. And speaking of the cost of non-compliance, that includes the fines that you need to pay to the regulators, to the government, to the person in charge, take care of that area, the settlements, the business disruption that can be happening during to non-compliance cases, the productivity loss that you'll be losing due to non-compliance, the revenue losses, all of these account to the cost of non-compliance. So it's a lot for the business. It's better for the business of whatever organization to make sure they comply to environmental auditing. In 35, statistics shows that 34% organization outsource some or all of the compliance functionality. Because of this large amount of money that they've been losing, so people found their ways. Of course, we business leaders, we people with business mindset, we usually find a way to transfer the risk. We find a way to transfer the risk to our business. So the best way, 34% of the organization found themselves to outsource some or all of the compliance functionalities to the third party or to someone who can do it. And with this, they transfer the risk. There's cost of number that is no longer them with the third party. So they just need to pay the compliance cost to the third party, and everything is working smooth for them. And they find themselves they no longer have the non-compliance cost or expenses that they need to incur their business. Now I see the roles of environmental auditing in business risk mitigation. And before seeing the roles of environmental auditing in business risk mitigation, I'd like us to see the keys business risk as business people with business mindset, as people in the management, the decision-making people. Let us understand what are the business risks can be happening to our business each now and then. Then we see the roles of environmental auditing in mitigating those business risks that can be happening each our organization. So we have the legal risk. This legal risk include the non-compliance risks with the environmental regulation. Of course, that can lead to the legal penalties, that can lead to the fines, that can lead to the reputational damage to our business, of course. And with this one, you can say environmental auditing then help to organization to identify the areas of non-compliance, of course, and take those corrective action to meet whatever legal requirement that's required at that area. But we also have reputational risk, and of course, in today's world, in today's corporate world, in today's business, where we are moving toward ESG, where business society is more conscious on the environments, we are looking for the environmental friendly. So whatever stakeholders that we have expect the businesses to demonstrate the responsible environmental practices. And the failure to comply with the environmental standards, this leads to the negative publicity of that organization or that brand. It leads to loss of trust. It leads to the damage to the brand's reputation. It can guess what? The researchers show that in 2021, among the leading risk into the business or the leading business risk was due to this reputational risk, the business interruption that is made due to this reputational risk. which representing 41% of the risk to the business. And this one was followed by the fines and penalties that people incur due to the non-compliance to the business. So you can find this reputational risk is something that everybody is looking for to create the best reputation for their organization. But with a single non-compliance, you ruin it completely. We have the operational risk to the business, of which the poor environment management has resulted in the operational disruption, regulatory interventions, the increased cost for operations. And of course, with environmental auditing, it's helped to identify the operational inefficiencies and of course implement measures to improve performance and reduce that risk for our operations. And we finally have the financial risk. Speaking of financial, now here we're speaking of finance, speaking of money, speaking of costs, speaking of revenues. So non-compliance and environmental incident can lead to financial risk. This includes the fines, includes the penalties, includes the remediation costs, it could increase the insurance premium that someone has seen. So we're paying due to that single non-compliance. So we have also the financial risk to our business, but with the environmental auditing, it helped to identify the potential financial risk to our business, and of course, enable the organization or a company to allocate the resources effectively to make sure they reduce or they mitigate that financial risk that can be happening, or that they are found to be potential in their business, that they can reduce it completely and make sure they are working with the risk-free business or organization. So the roles of the environmental auditing and the business risk mitigation, the first thing is to identify the non-compliance. So environmental auditing is there to identify, or it is there in place to see, it's like AI to see whatever non-compliance on environment that is happening to our organization, to our operations, to our activities, to our projects that we are having, including the whatever that is required, whatever action that is supposed to be taken on the environment to reduce the non-compliance to our environment. So through the environmental auditing, organization can identify areas where they may be falling short in meeting environmental regulations, and of course the timely identification of those areas help them to take the corrective actions and whatever recommendation that can be made to make sure they reduce the non-compliance cases in their area. But the second thing is to assess the compliance with. So environmental auditing help an organization to analyze, of course, the environmental risk that presenting to their areas, of course, the understanding the impact that can be happening during to that environmental risk on their operations and their reputation. And of course, after assessing and identifying those, understanding those impacts in the operation on the operation and reputation, then they go down to develop the strategies to make sure that they mitigate those risks effectively, that those effects or those impacts on their reputation, if they are negative, they be reduced and then turn into the positive reputation or increasing efficiency in the operation or in their brands that they've been producing. But it's also improved operational efficiency because it helps to identify the opportunity for improving resource efficiency, reducing the waste generation, optimizing the energy consumption on the area. So if you implement the best measure recommended during the environmental auditing, so you find yourself you increase the operational efficiency, you reduce the cost of operating your area because you have reduced your waste generation, you have optimized your energy consumption, so you have reduced the cost and on turn, you mitigate the environmental risk at your area. But also help to strengthen the risk management system at the area, whereby it provides some of the insights into the effectiveness of the organization risk management system. So during the auditing, as I say, you try to see where are the areas that are not doing good into the area. So you find the organization risk management system probably is not working properly as required, or it's not functioning as expected into the area. So it helps to identify where are the gaps, where are the weaknesses within that organization or within that operation or within that equipment. And of course, enable the business to strengthen their process to control their process, and of course to have this monitoring mechanism for their process, the operation, to ensure that their risk management system is effective and can be used at all material time during the operations or their projects or activity, whatever they're doing in that area. And as I said, environmental auditing, of course, compliance, it's one among the best marketing tools. Of course, we have the issues of due diligence to our business in the operation. So environmental auditing plays among the very vital roles in demonstrating the due diligence to the stakeholders, to the customers, to the investors, to the regulatory bodies, or whatever we are working with. So if you proactively assess and mitigate the environmental risk that is being done during the environmental auditing, then organization can showcase their commitment to sustainably and responsible business practices in their area. So this is the roles of environmental auditing in business risk mitigation. And we have the benefits as we are approaching the end. As I said, if you implement or you comply to environmental auditing, of course, you gain the improved compliance by reducing the risk of legal penalty and reputational damage. Of course, you enhance your reputation, by which if you operate in an environmental responsible manner, and then you attract those environmental conscious customers and investors to your business. But it also has the same cost. Of course, it's among the cost-saving mechanism, because there is opportunity for improving operational efficiency for using have the optimum resource consumption, for reducing the waste reduction, and of course the energy consumption of the area. And at the end, you have the overall process of optimization of the operations that you have been doing. But it's also have to engender trust and confidence among the stakeholders that you're working with. So since it demonstrates the organization commitment, as I say, the management commitment, the administration accountability, that means it helps you to engender, to give a rise out to build the trust of the stakeholders, of the investors, the customers, the regulatory bodies, the society at large, on whatever product that you have been giving out, on whatever service that you have been giving out. So as I'm reaching the end of my presentation today, I would like us all to go out with this one. With this one, sorry. I would like us to go out with this one understanding, whereby we have to understand that by embracing the environmental auditing, the business can contribute to sustainable development while reaping the benefits of improved performance, of course, any reputations, and reducing operational disruption. And by incorporating the environmental auditing into a risk management system, then you ensure due diligence and long-term sustainability to your business or to your operation that can bring the good profits, or that can increase the profit to your organizations or to the business that you are working with. So this marks the end of my presentation today. I'll welcome you if you have any questions or anything to add on. Welcome.
Asante sana, our environmental expert, Ms. Judith, for a very good presentation. Now it's your floor for all participants. We are into the Q&A session. Anyone with question, recommendation, comment regarding the environmental audit compliance and business risk mitigation, you're welcome. The floor is yours. It's my hope the presentation was very clear for everyone. Right? And
and we are going to share the same with all the participants after closing our webinar. So I assume there is no any questions. So now we can jump into closing remarks. And yes, otherwise, if there is anything else before we proceed, back to you, Julia Wilson.
Oh, well, I'd like to thank everybody who joined this session today. Of course, if you need to have more details on this, or if you need to understand on the safe or how to create a safe and compliant business, then let's keep in touch. My contacts is there, or you can scan that QR code and join our group. Whatever you need to understand, be it educational, be it operationalized, welcome. We are here to help you to create or to partner with you to create a safe and compliant business.